February 14, 1942. It is less than a year after the bombing of Pearl Harbor Naval Base by the Japanese. Americans are disgusted by the internment of European Jews and other groups, but almost none of these Americans know that they are about to subject their own neighbors to the same horrific treatment. President Franklin Roosevelt has just signed Executive Order 9066 into law. This order authorizes the exclusion of people from an area for military necessity. This single sentence altered the lives of nearly 120,000 Japanese people living in America. 62% of these people were American citizens. President Roosevelt justified this action by convincing Americans living on the West Coast, who were neighbors of many of the Japanese internees, that they were really spies for their native country. This wasn't hard to do. Many Americans were wary of Japanese people due to the attack on Pearl Harbor. Meanwhile, Americans on the East Coast had little to no idea this internment was happening. Japanese internees were relocated to 10 camps along the Midwest and West Coast of the country. These camps were dirty and overcrowded, although the U.S. government tried to convince people that they were for their own safety, but it was bad. Not only were all persons of Japanese ancestry interned, they were also given the status of enemy aliens, which prohibited them from serving in any branch of the military and nearly stripped them of their citizenship.
When the war broke out, young Japanese American men and women rushed to their local recruitment boards to volunteer to serve in the U.S. Army. But because we looked like the enemy, simply for that, we were rejected from service. Those that volunteered to serve were classified as 4C.
With this cruel treatment in mind, it's hard to imagine that any Japanese American would still be patriotic, but there were plenty of patriotic people living in these internment camps, which the government soon realized.
True that I was a loyal American and willing to fight for my country during a time of war. And also, I want to prove that U.S. government was wrong in the internment of Japanese Americans.
In response to the growing loss of American soldiers and mounting social pressure, the military reluctantly agreed to form a team of Japanese-only American soldiers who would serve in the war. This team was a combination of the 100th Battalion, which was already in service, and volunteers from the internment camps. This team was shortly named the 442nd Regimental Combat Team. The 442 was sent to training, where they endured racially driven cruelty. They were all subjected to intense psychological exams to determine whether or not that they were really loyal to the United States. Once they had completed this grueling training, the 5,500 members of the 442nd were sent into combat. Their bravery would make them the most decorated unit of the Army in its history. In addition to surviving countless battles, the 442 liberated the Nazi camp in Dachau, Germany. One of their most famous feats, however, took place in France. The 442 was sent in to liberate the town of Bruere from Axis forces. The 442 lost over 800 men during these 3 weeks of fighting. The 442 also rescued the Lost Battalion of the U.S. Army during these 3 weeks. In all, the 442 was awarded over 18,000 awards in less than 2 years of service, including 21 medals of honor. But perhaps the best award is knowing their bravery led the Japanese internees to remain optimistic and patriotic even in difficult times. The legacy of the 442nd Regimental Combat Team is still strong today. In 2010, the entire team was awarded the Congressional Medal of Freedom by President Barack Obama. Every year, the town of Bruere, France, which was liberated by the 442nd, holds a celebration in honor of their sacrifice.
Forget the sacrifice. So here they are, saying thank you.
The 442 opened the doors for people of Japanese descent in all fields of the U.S. military. Today, there are no legal boundaries stopping people of any race or ethnicity from pursuing the American dream. This is thanks, in part, to the 442nd Regimental Combat Team.
you.